You have some Miami pants on today, Dominique.
Miami ass shorts.
Yeah, you got some Miami ass shorts on.
You're like, you're packing for this trip? You're like, yep, these are coming.
I didn't pack for this trip. We did a ridiculous spring break where we started. Well, it's honestly me lashing out, but it backfired.
Nice.
So I asked my wife, could we do like some international travel now that COVID was calming down? And she was like, sure. She doesn't really like international travel. She's not much of a traveler. So I keep asking. So I was like, want me to do passports? And she's like, no, I'll take care of it. No, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Nah. And then it got closer. She's like, we should just wait till it gets real close. And then since we live in D.C., like, let's just go to the State Department and get it done. And I was like, all right.
Is it faster?
It's supposed to be if you walk in.
Huh.
Anyway.
Domonique Foxworth is here. We're all very happy to see him. Old friend of the show back in town to give us some expertise. What are you smiling about, Amin?
I'm smiling because Dominique's here.
Yeah.
So, Dan's not going to bully me off my boring story. I want to tell a boring goddamn story. I'm telling a boring story. You don't pay my check? Fire me. All right. So, I was lashing out. I was like, you know what? We're going to Aspen. Take your ass somewhere cold for spring break.
Oh, you zagged.
Yeah. And then I got scared. It was like, all right, after we go to Aspen, we go fly from Aspen to Miami. So that she's not too bad at me. So we're at the second leg of our spring break right now.
Going to Aspen, you got to watch out for Gwyneth Paltrow, man. She's out here.
You know what I was surprised by in Aspen? I was disappointed. Because, of course, it's like it's super expensive and exclusive and whatever. And it's like, yeah. And I was excited because I was like, I'm going to see a couple brothers. And I always know that when there are fewer black people, the way you greet each other, it's more vigorous because you have to express to them if shit goes down.
Yes,
I got your back, motherfucker.
It's not like that with white people. When there's only like two white people, it's like we try to we don't need to be near each other.
Yeah, because the rest of us be nervous. If you guys go next to each other, you start winking.
We do the whitest handshake ever. It's like, what's going on over there?
You know the history of DAP? From the Vietnam War. It was black GIs used it to communicate to each other that they had each other's back. So I see black people in Aspen and I want to communicate to them, I got your back. And I slightly tilt the hand up to dap them.
Well, hold on.
And then they go for the handshake and I'm like, I can't trust you.
Firm handshake.
I can't trust you.
But hold on, Dominic. You tell me in the 50s, everyone was just like, hello. Like they were just handshaking. And then it got to the Vietnam War in the 60s and like, guys, we need something. Let's tilt it 45 degrees. Okay, now I know you're cool.
It feels like you're mocking me, and I'm here for the joke. So go ahead and get all the jokes out before you get to Google.
I'm asking questions.
And then you're wrong.
Put it on the poll, Juju, at LeBatard Show. Do black skiers in Utah shake hands instead of dap?
Colorado.
As if they're in Vietnam is the question.
As if they're in Vietnam, yes. As if they're in Vietnam is a good addition to that question. I'm gonna miss the polls when Twitter takes them away. I wanted to get your expertise, Dominique, on a football thing because the Dolphins have spent $7 million at running back, Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Ahmed, and they were in play for Derrick Henry and in play for Dalvin Cook. They asked about Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler. You've seen that position ground to dust. Like, what's the right way to do that at that position?
I don't think that there is a right way. I think that there is I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who had this quote about saying that at the bounds of, like, intellectual enlightenment, like, is just more ignorance, essentially. And so I think as we get smarter and smarter in sports, what it does is it opens up more. It opens up more questions because, like, when we thought the earth was flat, some of us still do, like, we knew less. And then we're like, oh, well, the earth round. And, oh, we revolve around the sun. And then what about the sun? What about the planets around there? And you just learn more and more. And I think as we add more intelligence to the game, the questions get bigger. So I get frustrated with some of the analytics community because, like, I'm a smart guy. I can handle the numbers. But they present it as if it's fact and like as if it's not changing and as if the decisions that you're making aren't contingent on the variables. And the variables are constantly changing. And in a game like football where there's so many variables, it feels impossible to say there's one right way to do any position. So right now, I think, like, loading up on running backs at a cheap value seems smart. Excuse me, because
$5 because they're gonna get hurt too on top of everything else. Or they're very likely to get hurt.
I'm not paying. Who gonna check me, boo?
That's $6 if you're not paying. If you're if you're refusing to pay,
just say you'll pay and don't.
And do the Stugotz
I
trick.
find you contempt of court.
That's it. I'm just banging the gavel and it's not working because I have no authority over this person.
That does not jive with my personality. I
got you, Domonique.
No, you will not. You will not.
Wow. You cost an employee money, a team player.
I will pay you.
Pretty sure she just took money out and put it right back.
I mean, why would you say to her like that?
Tricking me.
And you want to keep it away from me?
Unbelievable.
I haven't had cash in 10 years.
I was thinking you just canceled Christmas for Jess.
She fooled me so easily. Her waving around cash should have been as if she were waving around a small fetus alien. Like, I don't know where that came from.
The baby in Twilight.
It's so interesting, though, because smart people are now, they've gotten smarter in football. They're not cavemen in analytics and those things. This is probably the smartest time in football. And you're telling me that we still don't know how to measure that position. And I wanted to get your thoughts on the Lamar Jackson position, because that's an intersection of things that's amazing. It's an amazing intersection of things when you come to guaranteed money, which your union tried to argue for, and you can't have too much of in your sport, correct? Like, it's in your sport, you can't make the contracts too guaranteed, and they're already tending in that direction.
The dirty little secret about fully guaranteed contracts is it's not as simple as it seems. And so I think I heard Amin and Jessica, two quality union people. Well, I mean, he worked for the man, in case you didn't know. But the point is he understands how unions work and say that unions are for the little people, because the big, most powerful people don't necessarily need the union and would probably thrive more without a union, because the union caps their pay and it like lifts up the floor on the worst players' pay. So, I mean, the dirty secret about fully guaranteed contracts in football where there's a hard cap is if the player plays the whole time, it's fine. If the player gets hurt, that money is out of the cap unless the union negotiates for some sort of like allowances for like an injured player to then put that money back in the cap. So it's like it's a complicated thing
but
to
it's
unfold.
Crazy. It is. There's not quite anything like that with the human body, is there? Where we're going to use this sport, America's most popular sport, to make sure that we can measure the value of how much your body is worth, and we're going to hurt that body. And now, like, we're guaranteed to hurt that body, and I don't want to guarantee
it's a trade.
Your dollars.
It's a trade, and I like joke with my kids all the time about this. Is like, you know, that fancy school you going to cost me a knee, so you better get your ass up. You better get your ass up and go to school today, because this thing aching right here. You know, this fancy ski vacation. Complain one more time. This reconstructed hip right here is yelling at me too. And they don't really care one way or the other because they've lived in this their whole life.
I'm glad that these parenting techniques are not unique. Like, because I do that a lot.
They don't work.
A lot of shaming. Like, you guys like this? You like going to Disneyland? Like,
yeah, but with him. But Domonique is doing it with his actual body. Like, he just turned 40 years old.
my back hurts too.
From sitting in a chair,
4 hours, an uncomfortable chair.
From being in corporate, crunching numbers on how it is. Well, you did the coldest version of this. I mean, you had to measure the value of a human being you liked and his body. You had to.
Oh, you mean? Yeah, no, that was easy.
In basketball, though, no, you had to be cold about it.
No, the stories of guys that were medical red flags when we. And, like, you know, having a doctor walk in and say, look, if you play him, his heart might explode on the court. And you're like, all right, so we're not taking him. Like, it never occurred to me, like, oh, my God, that poor guy. I was just like, yo, this is the decision we're making.
So why weren't you taking him, though? Because it wasn't because you cared about his heart.
No,
it's because you feared getting sued.
Liability.
Yeah,
Liability.
So, Dan, you're really, when you do this stuff a lot and people ask you to host the show or host, like, you start to learn how difficult it really is to host and, like, how hard it is to, like, listen. And, like, I've noticed you through the course of this directed me off of conversations that are obviously interesting to me but boring to everyone else. But we cannot let Amin get away with pretending like he's a good person when he let these people, he's like, no, I don't care. His heart's in trouble. No, I don't want my company to get sued.
That's exactly what I'm not saying. Like, there was no part of me that was really empathetic towards that when it came to those things. When Amari Stoudemire was a free agent in 2010, we came up with this really elaborate contract where it's like your first 2 years are guaranteed. And then the third year is like 75% guaranteed if you meet like this or 50% guaranteed if you meet this minimum threshold of minutes played in the year before. And then the fourth year is another percent guaranteed, and so on and so forth. And we're like, this is very fair. And then the Knicks came in and they're like, 5 years fully guaranteed. And we're like, all right, man, have fun in New York. Like, you have to have that. Like, you can't sit around and make emotional decisions. You know, oh no, I can't let him go, because ultimately you're planning for bigger things. I talked about this on the radio where, as people are saying, like,
you were genuinely having trouble remembering where you
I talked about.
All he does is talking to mics.
And it might have been Illuminati, it might have been Metal Larkers, it might have been on the radio, but
it might have been a phone call.
So you were repeating yourself and quoting yourself from a platform you're not sure of where it was. It might have been on the
several iterations over. So someone asked me, I can't remember where or when it was. Maybe it was on the street. Someone asked me, what are the Celtics going to do if Jaylen Brown decides to walk? And I said, let me tell you right now, if they're a good front office, and I believe they are, in their war room, they have a zillion permutations of, this is what happens if Jaylen Brown walks, but we trade him for such and such. This is if we trade him for a bunch of players. This is if we trade him for one star player. This is if we don't let him walk.
Not human beings, assets, chips on a board.
There you go, Dan. Host this shit, baby.
All the different permutations, right? So, like, the idea that anyone could be shocked and then, like, what do we do now? Like, that's not a luxury you have as a front office. So when, Domonique says, oh, is the guy's heart going to explode? Yeah, like, I had 7 other names, right? All right, then him. Because the reality is, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, yes, you have your order of, I'd like this guy best. But then it's like the next best guy isn't that far off. Like, obviously at the top end, it's like, would I rather have Durant, or if the next best guy is Terrence Ross? Surely I want Durant. But a lot of times it's not that. It's like, would I rather have this guy or that guy? It's like,
You said Amin is talking into mics a lot, and earlier he said he used the shame to motivate his children. Yeah. I would like you to say, you hear this raspy voice, kids? Yeah. You like Disneyland, don't you? Well, I had to do Doc Rivers for 13 hours the other day. Off the Looking Glass, also phenomenal. I enjoyed the interview that just like devolved into a mystical place. That was pretty fun. Which is
They're all like that.
It was. I just only listened to the last one.
Now you got to go around and say something about all our podcasts.
Yeah, Montgomery and Company, because Miami, what's up?
Trash.
Okay, thanks.
Wow. Wow, Jesus. You got to get Renee on to
I'm just joking. I haven't listened to Montgomery and Company, but
that's worse.
That's even worse.
I haven't even given them the lessons.
I haven't.
No, I'm not okay.
I'm sorry. I mean, it's great.
You could have just said
I work
that.
hard on those shows,
He's a big cinephile guy.
Oh, are we on now?
Yes, we are on.
Trapped me. Now you're going to have Renee Montgomery coming after me? I'm just joking, Renee. I love your show. It's great. I think I've heard.
This is what I wanted
to
talk.
You haven't heard.
Don't you live in Montgomery County?
No, I live in D.C.
Isn't that, and you don't live in Maryland?
No.
You live in the city, in the town.
So my wife's whole family is from D.C.
I mean, get out.
What's
2
your
minutes.
address?
Just get out. You forgot you were doing the show and you just got curious. Get out. Get
He's
out and don't even say anything.
They love Montgomery County.
2
basketball
minutes,
guys.
penalty box. Both Chris and Roy said to you, what does that have to do with the show? Because you're not having a drink with Domonique. We're doing a show for a lot of people.
What school district is it, though?
I mean,
Jess, go sit with him. Go sit with him.
Jesus.
We'll get back to how lovely Off the Looking Glass and the podcasts are, but I do want everyone to hear this because Domonique, I wanted him so badly, so very badly to be. I don't want to handle money. I don't want to have anything to do with the money and the business of Metal Arc Media. I hate it. And I wanted Domonique to be our COO. And he told me he would not be. And why did you tell me you would not be? Because I thought I thought we had a real chance to hire you.
Because you are friends and family with the people that I was gonna fire. That's it. I mean, it's plain and simple.
He is not being gentle about. Or he is being gentle about that. He said he wouldn't take the job because I wouldn't fire anybody.
Yeah. No, I mean, the point was, it's not that it's specific people, but it's like you're trying to run a business or you're trying to have a family. And I made this joke earlier. It's like you either die a hero or live long enough to sit in meetings. When I walked in this morning to see you guys, you're sitting in meetings. And that's what I recognize is like, if you are inside the ESPN machine, you guys can be these rebels. And I can come in here and it can be fun and joke around, use a key card sometimes, bounce around, have a good time. But once you are separated, like you have to become the establishment a little bit. And my thought was, you know what's not going to go well for me is me trying to turn this group of rebels into some sort of organized structure without the ability to like actually have repercussions. And like, obviously I don't want to fire anybody and you want to train people, you want things to get better. But the point was that has to exist as a possibility. And I know from you that does not exist, or at least at that point, that does not exist as a possibility because you're like, you have a utopian view of some of these things. And I mean, as much as I'm a normal person, so I hate David Samson as much as the next guy. But every now and then he says some things that are true. And sometimes parts of business are uncomfortable. And we hate to hear it from a person like him, but it's true.
Samson, you're protesting him, right? You almost didn't come in today, and you were talking about not being a part of our show in any way, protesting because Meadowlark Media has made the error of hiring David Samson.
It's the exact same thing that I was talking about. Is like you die a hero, you live long enough to become a villain. He represents a lot of things. Like, I don't want to speak to him personally, but when I listen to the show and you kick Jessica out, but I love that Jessica's here because she is one of the few voices that will push up against the things that he says that are fact, that are like a skewed opinion. And I have a skewed opinion too. I'm not saying that I don't, but my skewed opinion is the minority. So like when I'm on ESPN yelling about labor issues, it's in a sea of a bunch of other people who are talking about the players as assets. But when it's here, it's like David Samson with no pushback, but he's pushing his like tilted narrative about what matters in sports and very definitively, and it's good. It's entertaining. It's good for opinion, but it just is frustrating for me to listen to.
Well, but this is the thing, right? Because Amin will come back in here in a second, but as we're talking about the business of sports, and I think you're brilliant on the business of sports, and I think Amin is brilliant on the business of sports, but I think you're more human than Amin. I think you have not been made cold No, I'm talking about in how you view sports and players as assets and who needs to be traded, and stop talking about the nonsense. Let's talk about the real stuff. The business is cold, and guys like Domonique break their body trying to make money and expect some of the business to, hey, care for me back. Like, this hurts. And that gets weeded out as people go through the business of sports. You're shaking your head no.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't expect it. But that doesn't mean that I should, like, it's like being black. Like, I do not expect that things are going to be fair, but I'm not going to sit idly by and pretend like they are. And I think the same thing is true in sports. And I recognize that if you're going to work for, I was going to say a team, but frankly, if you're going to work as an executive for any company, there's some, like, bit of dispassionate analysis that you have to do. And like, I respect that about David Samson. I respect that about Amin. I think the difference between Amin and David Samson is Amin is conscious of the decisions that he's making. And it feels like, and David's not here to defend himself. I'm sure he will. And all this people pretending to hate him is probably great for his show and great for his personality, his ego. But I think sometimes he presents it as if we're pretending that these things don't exist. If he would just say, like, yeah, I know this is bleeped up, but this is how I'm going to do it, and that's not how it's presented. It's like, this is right, that is wrong.
So, yes, he does have that kind of approach, which can be off-putting. But one of the topics we were talking about in the pre-show meeting was the idea of minor leaguers, right? The minor leaguers, it's just been announced they're going to have their salaries doubled. And everyone was like, oh, that's great. And then they looked at the details and like, oh, so now they're up to like $37,000 a year instead of 19 or whatever it was before. And I was like, yep. That's why they're minor leaguers. Like, I saw nothing wrong with that.
Those are brutal salaries. What's seen as a huge victory for minor league baseball, and it is a huge victory for minor league baseball. The top salary in AAA being $36,000 was shocking to me.
It was like a roller coaster. It's like, whoa, that's a great headline. And then you see the next tweet. It's like, oh, but holy shit, they were not getting paid before.
And then the tweet that doesn't exist but should, if I cared about Twitter, is that the league wanted that. And like that does not strengthen the union, honestly. Like the union's power is not made stronger by adding a much bigger lower class. And then you think about it from, these are all the things that I think about when I read these stories. So like there's a partnership between the NFL and the XFL. And we're like, oh, cool. XFL is gonna have some support, so there'll be another league. You know who that's not gonna be good for? Players. Because I don't know exactly the legal connection between the two of them, but like one of the reasons why the union has any power is because the league exists as a monopoly or monopsony, and we can't take our employment elsewhere. If there is another reasonable league out there, then they could argue against the power that we do have and say, no, there is another employer that you can go to. Depending on the relationship between them, we're not sure how that works. And then it's also like one of the things that, baseball players did early.
$5.
Again, not paying. One of the things that baseball players did early in their labor issues was they created a players' league run by the players. You know what's going to be harder and harder to do? Not that players could create a competitive league, even though some players thought to do so during our last work stoppage. But when you are completely saturating the entire market, when you have spring football and summer football, and you have fall football and winter football, then where is there space to create something else? So, like, I don't give a shit about the XFL. All I care about is the players and how you protect them. So the XFL, yes, it's more jobs, but are they like the type of jobs that you can make enough money that it was worth the sacrifices you made? Because the idea that you've given up focusing on academics in college, you've given up your 20s when you're building some base of a career, you're giving all this up. Like for me, I remember I wrote a story about this in ESPN,
Dominique,
the magazine.
It's crazy.
You can't bulldoze me. I wrote about this in ESPN, the magazine, a while ago about how my contract year was like the worst year of my life, and it was the best year I had on the field, but it was so stressful. It was near depression because I was just becoming an adult. I was 25 years old, and I was just realizing all the things that I had traded. When I was 14, I was the best player, and they're like, you should focus on football. Stop looking at this stuff, focus on football. I get to college. I want to be a computer science major. Like, nah, you have labs during practice. You can't do that. Focus on football. During the summer, I want to do internships. Nope, you're not going to be able to do that because you got to focus on football. I give up all this stuff in my early 20s. What are you going to do? I'll be a professional football player, make a couple $100,000. Then I realized that if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be 27 years old, and I'm only qualified to, like, fight people for a living. And I have nothing to like as a background. It's like, this sucks. You have to ball out this year, or all the decisions that you made for the first 27 years of your life were for nothing. And like,
no pressure.
Yeah. And like I'm in I got traded on week 1 to the Falcons, who had just sent Michael Vick to jail. And I'm at the bottom of the depth chart on a bad team in my contract year. And I'm sitting in an extended stay hotel like, the fuck? Everybody's watching this game. Like, I wish I could be in the NFL. And I'm like, I wish I wasn't.
Wow. What?
Then I balled out and I got rich, so it didn't matter.
I was like, I knew I made the right decisions all along.
I was in Atlanta too.
Dominique, what did you think today when you walked into our meeting and you saw me at the helm? Did you think we were messing with you?
That's a great question.
It would have been a great
It must
bit.
have looked like a visual prank to him. He must have thought it was like a surprise party to walk into what was our environment with not a meeting. And now you got 3,500 people.
And me just throwing poop against the wall.
Nah, I was filled with 275 pounds of confidence.
I mean,
Who's
is that what I weigh?
275?
275 is what he's saying. You're 275.
Yeah, like I mean, geez, that is high.
No, that was a lot. That was a lot
I
of
think I'm like
confidence.
220, 230.
No, that
he
was
was talking about the
confidence.
confidence. He wasn't talking about your weight. He was just talking. He was saying it was an outsized confidence.
It was like you're 220, obviously, but you were standing up there with 50 more pounds of confidence.
Also, hit dog hollow.
I love when Chris is in charge.
Thank you.
You're a good leader.
Chris, this is what I want you to do on days when you're in charge. I need you to come in with like a collared shirt, like tucked in.
Don't try to change him.
No,
Stop
No,
that.
don't
You're trying
try
to
to be
corporatize my
witty.
boy. Stop that.
It's the visual. It's a visual bit, man.
Well, but what do you mean a bit though? I mean, people have been in. I don't think that Jessica was doing a bit when she said, "I like you being in charge, Chris." The 3
No, that
days
was
this week,
honest.
three days
I
this
thought it was
week,
a
Chris
bit.
has been in charge. And initially, he started a meeting by saying, "Meeting adjourned." That's how his career started.
It's called an opening. Dan's never led a meeting before. You like to lead a meeting, get everyone feeling good. A little laugh at the start of the meeting.
Yeah.
Domonique knows.
Break the ice.
Start with a joke, and now he's grown 50 pounds of confidence this week. I've seen him near the bacon.
Does 50?
I mean, it's interpersonal stuff. I
didn't turn your mic on.
And then you hit Jessica's hand and her mic in a frenzied grab of power to bang the microphone.
Just heard.
I subscribe to, you don't want to be too polished.
You want to be relatable, personable.
Domonique came in
That's
here.
why I like Chris Cote.
Zagak.
Domonique came in here today and said legitimately, syrupy, made me borderline emotional. Chris Cote, it's been a wonder to watch you become a serious person.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Chris. It's all of them. Like Roy and Billy, who's not here right now, like they are growing into something. And it, like, I don't know.
Kids and shit now. It's weird.
It's not even the kids part because any idiot can have a kid. It's like the part of
Ain't that a truth?
Yeah. It's like take the part where you actually grow into a person who I can trust with a kid or a person I can trust with more responsibility. And the things that you're talking about as far as leadership is like you put your common man words on it, but like I went to business school and we had all full classes about how you are supposed to be more personal and be more relatable. It's like walking into, and something I learned at the NBA Players Association, big mistake that I made is I thought that there was a possibility that you could sway people with being correct or data. I was wrong. And I was like, I had spent hours and days and days and days putting together a plan for how we should go forward. And I came to the meeting not realizing that more important than a good plan is people believing in the plan and people believe in people that they like and they want to be around and they trust. And so building relationships, I think, is more important than like doing everything right. Like saying meeting adjourned at the beginning of a meeting. Who gives a shit if the meeting was good?
Dan.
And they were. And these shows have been good. You know why? I mean, they're always good. I don't want to take credit.
Yeah.
It's all these people around here. It's
Oh,
working with Jess. It's working with Tony. Jeremy.
And leader right there.
Yeah, pay the teachers more.
And don't even get me started.
Respect the firefighters.
And don't even get me started on the behind the scenes people. I love every single one of you.
For EP.
He's a front runner right now.
You got my vote.
We wait, Tony. I thought you wanted EP.
Bobby, I don't want that.
Domonique would want EP if David Samson didn't work here.
Is Billy in the running? Because I kind of like Billy.
Billy was yesterday.
Best show in history.
How did people?
Chaotic.
How did people feel about the leadership there? Chaotic says.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the chaos. A lot of get off my planes.
But he
which
likes
somehow always makes me
chaos.
laugh.
He likes
Hasn't
chaos.
gotten old yet. I was
Oh, you guys want me to
expecting-
play it now? Okay.
Co-EP?
Get off my plate.
Yes, that's been a highlight this week for some inexplicable
timing.
reason. Chris Cote hits wrong buttons, and Harrison Ford appears from 30 years ago as an American
who it
president on an airplane, threatening.
I didn't know the reference, Roy.
Wow!
I had no idea either.
Okay, you don't know
Indiana
the
Jones?
Okay,
Get
I don't.
off my plate.
That's when the snake's there, right?
wow.
He's in the plane, the snake's there, and he's like, "Oh, get off my
And he
plane."
says, "I'm tired of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking
Exactly.
plane."
He's always by snakes for some
Those are
reason.
different movies. That's not.
That's not.
Wasn't Harrison Ford snakes on a plane? Get off my plane. He wasn't yelling at snakes.
Two Americans.
It's always snakes, Dano.
When I woke up this morning, I thought I was walking into a David Samson local hour. I thought we'd have everyone here in their Marlins gear, excited about baseball, and then listen to David defend the Marlins ownership and management from the last 20 years. And instead, we got Domonique, we got Chris Cote cracking jokes. It's been a great Thursday morning, guys.
Well, we have a mutiny on our hands, Jessica, and it's a bit of a problem. And Mike Schur protested for a day. Domonique is saying he doesn't want Samson around. And I need help with the business because, as Domonique just told you, I'm no good at that part of this. I need somebody in here.
Wait, Samson's running business?
He just wants to get
What
into
is
the
happening
crevices.
here?
He wants to be the executive producer.
Oh, shit.
Did you give Samson equity?
He wants everyone here has equity.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, but different.
What do you mean? Did we give Samson equity?
I love that part where Samson comes in and immediately like slashes the workforce by 40%.
Like Domonique was about to.
Samson was born with equity.
On third base.
Can you explain to people, though, when they get mad? Because I do believe Skipper and Samson do a very smart hour of sports business, and I think Domonique would be just as smart. Because I remember very early meeting Domonique. He sat across
Smarter.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Sat across from Jerry Jones and realized very quickly, oh, this person's not smarter than I am. He's wealthier and he's had success and he's an oil man and everything else, but this is not a brilliant man. This is just a man with a whole lot of money. And it's. I think that you could have a business conversation from a player perspective that Skipper and Samson don't consider.
So Jerry Jones is one of the most savvy, and I mean he's very smart. He's a very savvy businessman, and I think the interpersonal stuff, and the personality stuff, and the marketing stuff he saw ahead. Like he sued the league a number of times in ways that ended up benefiting the entire league, not just him, because he sees the future in a way. So like I don't mean to argue like some people may argue that anyone who's successful is just 100% lucky, because that would be outrageous. But there's a lot of luck and happenstance that gets people to certain positions. And I think
Tony, it's all luck.
Yeah.
It's
That's
all
what
luck.
I'm trying to tell you, Dan.
It's all luck.
Domonique, let me explain something to you.
Dan out here explaining callbacks. You want me to teach you how to do an audio program?
Domonique, so what I was saying yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever it was, is a lot of famous people and rich people got lucky. Yeah. That's it.
So I think you're right. There
Tom
is
Brady?
luck. There's a lot of luck involved in it. I think it's like serendipity mixed with like hard work and talent. Like there's a formula, and I think part of the luck is like being born in America, and part of the luck is being a white man. Part of the luck is which isn't luck at all. You're just born these ways. But part of the luck is you just happen to be the right place, the right time. But the point is, there are differences in different people. So whatever. All that aside, the point is, I think I assumed that going into the owners' meetings, I was a bit intimidated when I was a player before I went in, because I assumed that to get to the top, to be like a billionaire, to get to the top of business, that you had to be as exceptionally intelligent as I was athletic. It's like you might have gone through something like that. And I was like, oh, I can't fuck with the me of brains, the LeBron James of thinking.
Oh, basketball Illuminati.
So I went in there and then I was like struck by the fact that like, no, they're normal people who like worked hard. I'm not trying to knock them. They worked hard and they're like intelligent enough, like they're above average intelligence. But I was expecting like Bill Gates, where it's like they read an entire book a day.
But also, Dominic, there's a part of this which I believe with all genius, right? Like, you're not genius in general.
Yeah.
You're genius at something.
Yeah.
And
that's another thing. Yeah.
That particular thing you may excel at does not necessarily mean it translates over to everything, which is, I think, like, when I think about the way people think of Elon Musk, like there's a part of it where, like, they're applying, like, oh, because he had a vision in investing in Tesla early or whatever. That means he'll know how to do Twitter right. And it's like, it's clearly obvious the guy has no idea what he's doing.
When you have kids, I think if you have multiple kids, you start to see this also, that like you're not a genius at everything. Like all of my kids are like really exceptional at something. But
That you're not.
That I'm not, yeah. But none of them are exceptional at all things. And like if you show up and hang out with me and my family, you'll walk away thinking, wow, that boy of yours is like so charismatic, and you like assume like he's such a genius because like he's personal. You look at their report cards, you would be like, hey, that oldest one, she never gets anything lower than an A. She must be perfect. So it's just like, and then the youngest one, you're like, she's hilarious. It's just, you start to realize that, because I think we all think of everyone like we're all starting at the same place. Every man's created equal and woman's created equal, when it's not true. Like, we all have different advantages. And sometimes the other thing that's crazy is this world is built for a certain type of person. And I don't mean like the way a person looks, but like the way someone thinks, the way someone reacts. The world is built for a certain type of person. And if you are that type of person, then you fit in the world and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this person is so perfect. If you aren't that person, then you look at them, you're like, man, this motherfucker's a problem. When in actuality, like, no, the things that we prioritize is like, let's send kids to school. If you can sit still for 6 straight hours and recite all this stuff you learn, then you are an exceptional human being. If you can't, then you're worthless. When in actuality, like, there ain't nothing special about following rules. Like, doesn't make you special.
What stuff is your kid better than you at? Isn't your kid like 7?
Yeah, so
like my 5-year-old better at nothing than me.
Dude, it'll happen.
It'll happen
and
eventually.
you'll just be like,
or you haven't found a thing.
Right.
Yet.
So like,
give me something that.
So the twins, they're exceptional at art. Like drawing, like they'll watch a movie and then they'll go and they'll just draw from memory.
I can draw so much better than my dad.
Gave her some bad genes.
It's gonna happen at some point. You're gonna be floored because you're gonna be like, oh, in all my life, I could never be as good as you are right now at this one thing that you're doing. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's math. I don't know.
Maybe your daughter isn't showing that she's super smart right now, but just give her time. She'll be the EP of the Le Batard Show in 20 years.
Do it better than her daddy ever did.
Maybe she's just really good at like interpersonal things. She knows that your fragile ego can't take that a 5-year-old is better than her at something. So she's purposely downplaying her abilities, something that a lot of women have to learn to do very young.
We're going to the Marlins game today, and this morning we were in an argument because she wants to wear a jersey, and I tried to tell her from a young age, humans don't, if you're not in the game, you're not wearing a jersey.
What?
I don't like it at any sport,
The
any
worst thing I've
age.
ever
What are you
heard.
talking about?
It's just
So
they're
stupid.
uncomfortable. You should be a jersey person. Is what I'm
So-
trying to teach her.
Let me tell you, I think just being a parent, you want to like. When I first had kids, I made it a point to like not push anything that I really like on my kids. And the whole time I'm watching, my wife is like pumping them with music, pumping them with everything. And I'm like, leave them alone and let them find what they like. Right. When in actuality, she was right. Because if you don't put it on them, someone else in the world is going to. So I would say, Chris, if you feel strongly about this jersey thing, stand your ground.
Jessica tried on
Wrong
3
state to say stand
jerseys.
your ground, I'm
Jessica
sorry.
tried
Jessica,
on
no, you
3
didn't.
jerseys this morning.
I did. I
Oh,
put on
Jessica.
the Marlins. Bless the Marlins. Love them. Go Fins. Whatever they say. They sent me
Go
like 4
Fins.
Marlins
The Marfins.
jerseys.
Go
That's actually the
Fins.
exact slogan.
The
Go
Marfins.
Lins.
All
They
Colores.
sent me.
Put that on a T-shirt. I want to send that as I want to sell that as the slogan for the Marlins. It should be that.
They sent me like 4 jerseys when I moved down here, and I
4
tried them on this morning.
I've
and
never received a jersey. from
honestly, just like didn't fit my vibe today. Like it just. I'm with Chris Cote on this one.
What is the jersey that like Mike came in here a few weeks ago with a basketball
That
jersey with
was
no undershirt? Like it's a
embarrassing.
dangerous game.
That was embarrassing.
Strong opinion from Tony on a very strong opinion from Tony on.
Dan, when was
Why
the
didn't you
last
say
time?
it to Mike's face?
I did. I said, Mike, please don't ever dress like that ever again. The same day, Taylor, one of our video guys, wore a jersey too, and he wore an undershirt. Normal thing to do. Not a jersey guy whatsoever. But Mike came in with a cutoff armpit hair
Tony-
showing.
And we get that
Yo.
side view. We get that side view.
I
Of
mean,
Mike
you got to be
too.
toned. I feel like if you got to be tatted, also these are important things. And the jersey has to be tight, which means your body has to be
Right.
tight. Because I think you look stupid in a baggy jersey.
Even the hockey
got-
jersey's bad.
I got a top
How
5
dare you.
jerseys you could wear. You ready?
Sure.
Top 5 jerseys you can wear. Where did that come from?
Well,
we were
like,
talking about
Look,
something.
you guys were talking about jerseys.
I know, but I was talking to Jessica about her 4 jerseys.
Well, then the conversation moves, but okay.
Keep
Jessica, tell us
It's like a
more.
lazy river.
Tell us more about
you know
your
what?
jerseys.
We're teasing yours. We're not doing yours yet.
Okay.
Chris, 4.
You EP'd the shit out of that.